Good morning. Let me turn on my lights. Good. Good morning, all. Welcome to this morning's. You are more than welcome. And that's no problem, Kerry. Just join when you can. Hi, Rob, John, Kerry, Hannah, George, Ellen, Stuart, Stephanie, all welcome to this morning's masterclass. So we do these every month. I'd encourage you to come on in. We'll be doing quite an interactive session. So we encourage you to join in. It'll make it much more worthwhile for you spending your time here. And also it also ensures that we include the different companies involved as well. So today we are talking about cracking the code to employee engagement, 5 top strategies. And I struggled really this morning to get down to the 5. I had 8 and 9, and I was really beating myself down to get down to 5, which I actually didn't. So I kept it about 7. So we will share 7 this morning. Because they're all really useful strategies that you can take. So we've put the strategies, which are kind of the big picture, but also we've put tips that you can literally take and do now in the company. So they're versions of the tips based on case studies that we have. So let me first start off with introducing myself. I'm Marita Price from Hello Performance, the director in Hello Performance, and we are a culture and leadership company. So we support companies to improve their culture and improve their leadership. We do that through our Culture Accelerator program, and we also do one-to-one leadership coaching where that's of value. So we talk a lot about employee engagement. It's a major part of the culture. If you have engaged employees, you have a great culture. So that is regularly what we're trying to tackle when we are talking employee engagement. So and culture. So let's get started. So we mainly do it we have 3 industries that we mainly work in. Is food and beverage is a big part of ours. We also work in construction and randomly private schools as well. So we have a range of, and that is just historically where we've built up our expertise. But generally where we would say our real expertise is where we have hourly workers and salaried workers. That is really where our expertise lies. How do you overcome that challenge where you've hourly and salaried workers to increase the engagement across? So my background is not HR, my background is operations. I worked in factories for a long time, ran many factories and learned my trade there, where I was tackled with some really poor cultures and had to really raise the bar in the company, really for results. So it was around how are we going to raise the profit, how are we going to ensure that the company and the factories were efficient and effective and producing what we needed to produce in the time frame, and managed to turn those around. And some of those are really still, so there's 2 companies in particular that I keep in great contact with, and they have positive results today, which is great. One up in Sweden, some in the UK here. So that is us. So moving on. As I say, please feel free to come and join in. We'll be asking you to take part in a while. So there's always a culture. You end up with one, whatever you do. So you can either choose to influence it or take your chances. So we would always say, well, you shape your culture. You put the strategies in place to shape your culture. It's just like the garden on this hot day, which is flourishing outside. You can choose to let the garden go wild and it will end up as one type of garden, or you can choose to tailor it to what works best for your company, and also what is in line with the values that you have and also the purpose and vision that you have. So employee engagement, let's start off with make sure we all have the same understanding of what it is. Here's the fancy definition of it. It's the degree to which employees invest their cognitive and emotional and behavioral energies towards positive organizational outcomes. Nice push words in there. What they're saying is it's about the investment a person has in the company and the goals of the company. So how much is someone invested in influencing the company and the goals of the company? And we all know the employees around us are engaged. We all have that touchy feeling of who they are. And actually, now that we just say that, let's just jump in. You guys know what an engaged employee looks like. You can feel it around you. Come on in, join us in this session. Come on in. What do engaged employees look like? Not physically, obviously, but what do they bring? How do they show up? Come on in. Who's going to be brave to jump in first?
Positivity, Marita.
Is that Rob?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, definitely, Rob. Perfect. Yes, they come with that positivity, that enthusiasm. Definitely. You can tell it. You can feel it when they're approaching a subject. And what does that bring, Rob, when there's someone is approaching something positively?
It brings positive outlook to what you're trying to do, and it gets a lot more involvement from colleagues.
Exactly. So when we come to a problem with a positive approach and a positivity, we tend to impact it well and have a positive outcome, as you say, Rob. Absolutely. That engagement. Anything else?
They're keen to bring something new to the table to help improve the business, etc.
Exactly, Hannah. Yeah, so they're coming with ideas. They're wanting to share new things. Absolutely. So they're the ones that are innovative and creative and coming with the new ideas and just problem solving. And they're the ones taking initiative as well. They're the ones when the problem is put it, they're going, let's take that on. We can fix that. And you'll recognize them as well as they're willing to put up their hand and take on responsibilities, maybe outside the day job. Brilliant, Hannah. Anything else? We'll go for one more. Who's going to be brave? All very quiet this morning. Okay, so I think we've captured a lot of it anyway. They're the enthusiastic, the positive, the engaged, and we know then what that brings. It brings outcomes. The people take initiative. They fix the problems and things get done. They go that little bit above and beyond for the company. That is the real measure for me. Will you go that little bit above and beyond for the company? Because that's a really true measure if someone is engaged. Good. So by lifting up engagement, we can impact performance, innovation. We talked about the new ideas coming through. We talk about retention, we talk about attracting and retaining talent. Morning, Savita. Morning, Julian. That is a real one. You can, when engagement is high, people can feel that in the company. They tend to stay longer. They feel they have an influence on the company. So research has shown, and this is really related to my production ones as well, where you have less accidents, less absenteeism, and more client loyalty in companies that have in the higher percentage of employee engagement in that top quartile. And that is from Harvard studies. So we can show that when there's high employee engagement, all these are positively impacted. And we all want that less cost to the company and more impact on the day-to-day in the company. So overall, employee engagement, we know we want to raise it. And generally what companies do, so some companies measure it, some companies don't. Some companies measure it yearly. They go in and do a big yearly survey. Some companies don't. Some companies do it as a regular measurement and measure it weekly, measure it monthly, and some companies just do it yearly. So there's different ranges of what when we've engaged with a company, what they're actually measuring. And a lot of the time there's a hesitation to measure in the first place. So we've just had a new client come on board, they're a family-owned company, and they're really nervous about engagement. So they know they want to measure it, but they're a bit nervous of what will come out, what the results will show. And part of that is helping the leadership having the courage to actually do this, because the value that comes out and finding out which aspects are working and is super invaluable. So this is a company we've worked with. They did their first survey back in September, and they had so the way we report is favorable, neutral, and unfavorable. Favorable being highly engaged when it comes to engagement, neutral being those not engaged, and unfavorable is actively maybe disengaged. So we measured it. The first outcome in September last year, we did 30% high engagement, and the goal was this year in the mid-year to be at over 50. That's their first goal, and next year they have a high target to get that above 60, and they're working hard to get there. And what they have seen immediately, so just in that from that 30 to 56, which is a considerable and radical increase in employee engagement, because engagement is something you generally nudge along, especially when you're getting to the higher numbers. But that was a radical increase because they took some radical actions, which we will share during this presentation. So the outcomes they saw: a reduction in absenteeism, retention went up. And in this climate, that was a huge one they wanted to tackle. They are a factory, so they have hourly workers, they have salaried workers. They had lost some key people from the salaried, and they had lost some really great team leaders from the factory as well. They saw their accidents go down, and they saw their returns. So the returns for them is when they get product returned, it's a high cost for them. It takes a lot of extra work, and they don't make any money, and in fact can lose money when they get these returns. So that is a big measure for them, this returns, which we will mention again later. So they saw a reduction on that already. So huge cost savings to the company within that 10-month period. So what are these top strategies to increase engagement? So I've really tried to pick, when you talk about strategies, you can keep it really high level. And if you read anything about engagement, you will read about, get your purpose and vision, get a clear purpose for employees, ensure that they're proud of the company they work with, make sure they're motivated. And they're all strategies, but then how do you actually take that and actually do it practically within your company? So what I've done today is those big strategies, I've taken it down and given you a practical tip example of what we have done in company. So you can take that literally and start doing it immediately, because that is, of course, a big help to increase engagement. Oh, and I saw Kerry and Stephanie and John wrote on the chat there. Stephanie, yes, excited to come to work. That is exactly what engaged employees are. And John, yes, as someone who contributes ideas freely. So you get that great ideas coming into the room to solve the problems, and then they take the initiative to actually go and fix it if they have the authority or empowerment to do it. So number one, get on the leadership radar. So this is where we would say, the leadership have to own engagement. They have to want to increase the engagement. And a lot of time they do, but a lot of the time they actually don't know, one, what to do. Two, it's not on their radar regularly because you have other KPIs that take over, the big ones, the financial ones, cash flow, and the whirlwind of daily life takes over. So it's really hard when then that engagement comes up. It nearly feels like a tag on for leadership. So how do you get it on the radar so it sits up there as important as some of the other KPIs that you have? And I've literally led into what I was going to say. So the tip we would give is engagement as a KPI. So culture in some way is a KPI, engagement being one measurement you can use. So that is a KPI. Now, as a KPI, it cannot be done yearly. It would have to be measured regularly, doing a culture pulse, doing an engagement pulse regularly. So just like your cash flow and just like your profit coming in to your leadership meetings, that also engagement is coming in as a KPI in there and sits up there and actually measured. It's live, it's real, and it can be, you can actually then action it. Because we would say, you know, what gets, well, that's the famous saying, what gets measured gets managed, but we would say what gets measured gets improved. So if you have that regular measurement on there, you have that regular focus, and those actions that are needed get the support from leadership. Mentioned a lot of that already. Accountability. So this is a big one, is the accountability for engagement. Where does that sit? A lot of the time it gets side railed into something that HR, can you take care of that? And we would say, yes, they can lead a lot of the actions, but it's the leadership who have to own engagement and make sure that it's a high priority. And the live data is critical for that to really bring engagement on there on the radar of leadership. So that's number one, get it on the radar of leadership. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough. Right, second one, organizational integrity. Lovely big words. What do I mean by those? Living the company values every day. So this is where company defines those values. Do they really live and breathe them every day? So as a new employee coming in, they're the greatest test to ask, you know, does this company live and breathe the values? Because they can see, is it congruent to what you're saying? Is that what you're actually doing? And that really decreases the trust and belonging and commitment of an employee if they see, wow, they put these fancy values up on the wall as the values, but actually the real life is nothing related to those. So how do you actually make that? Let's give a tip then of how do you actually make that happen? Come on, Marita, give us a tip. So we would talk about translating, and Rob, we've talked about this before, translating your values into behaviors. Taking those either words or sentences that you have, which are generally big and juicy words, how do you bring that down to the daily life? So let me give you an example of what I mean by translating your values into behaviors. So this is a client of ours, and they have 4 values. They have care, humility, passion, and authenticity. They are very clear on which ones they are living today and which ones they are working on. And they've made that really, really clear. But what do they actually mean by these words? So what authenticity means, a hard word for the Irish person to say with the TH, what they mean by, you know, authenticity for one person might be completely different for another. So let's have a look here. It's taking that vague words and making them specific. We have defined with them what we do and what we don't do. So on authenticity, for example, the second one there, we encourage others to have their say. And this is something that can easily be measured. You can sit in a meeting and we can see if they're really living this value or not. What we don't do is we don't judge others. We aren't rude. We don't have hidden agendas. They're just really clear on what it means to them. And they've done that with their 4 values. A real measure for the behaviors, so not the values, the behaviors on are you living it or not, is it teachable and is it measurable? Because if it is that, then it's something that we can then use in performance reviews. We can give really clear feedback to someone. Are they living it or not? So that's the second one. Organizational integrity. Are you living what you say you should be living? And by doing that, the way to do that, bringing your values down into behaviors. If you have any questions, guys, just stick them on the chat or jump in. This is an open session. It's for you guys, so feel free to jump in. Strategy, the next one, raise the bar for managers. So the managers at all levels, and that can be team leaders, it can be supervisors. When I say managers, I mean anyone who has the responsibility of a team and holds some accountability for that team. They are a key on making the daily life of the employees really great or really poor. I was going to put an S word there, but really great or really poor. And they impact that daily life. So how do we ensure that those managers are really operating at that best level? You know, there's a famous saying, we don't leave jobs, we leave managers, but they have such an impact on our daily life that it is key that we talk about making our managers superstars, making our managers the superstars. And one tip is get regular coaching for the managers. We do in the company we talked about earlier, where we went from the 30 to the 56 this year, which was a radical increase in the engagement. We do group coaching for the managers. So not one-to-one coaching, we do group in a group of 6. So they learn from each other, and they're also then raising their bar on their on what they can, how they are performing and behaving. And I will share you the topics that we touched on. So coaching for the managers, bringing them, making them superstars at goal setting. If goal setting can be nailed, you've come so far, because that's really setting for every employee, for every team. And this operates for hourly, salaried. Doesn't matter. If we've clear goals as humans, we operate so much better when we have clarity on what we're aiming for. Effective one-to-ones. Amazing if one-to-ones can be happening effectively. Again, I am talking the hourly and salaried staff here. If you can be effective, how to do an effective one-to-one, making them short, clever, hitting the key points in those really regular, and we call them short and regular one-to-ones. Tackling underperformance. Oh my gosh, this is a one that as humans we don't really like to face, but tackling underperformance is key. This is a key one for making sure we're not demotivating people around us. If we're all going above and beyond for a company, and we're looking here and seeing someone who is, they're giving it a bit, not really caring, they're not performing fully, we can be totally demotivated by that one employee. So making sure we are tackling underperformance can be a help massively to increase motivation across a team. And then these are the other topics that we covered as well with these managers to really make them superstars at doing that. Next strategy, right? I'm going to bombard you with strategies. Career progression. So part of engagement and measuring engagement is, do I often look for jobs in other places, and do I see myself in 2 years? And for a number of people, actually knowing that they have the possibility and what options there are in this company can be highly motivating and can impact employee engagement considerably. For career progression, I would say map it, communicate it, over communicated, by the way. I always talk about over communicate. We can never over communicate, and then deliver it. And not just for salaried staff, for hourly staff. In this the case study, they have done a fantastic job in working through a salary progression for hourly staff. So how do you get from that base salary to the next level strategy, to the next level salary, to the next level salary. So that helps with retention, it helps with engagement, and it also is helping retain that expertise in those areas, which means they're not having as much returns, which I talked about earlier, in those areas, which is a massive saving for them if they don't have those returns. So yeah, get salary, get it down. What are the options for career progression in this company? Then communicate it. And then they need to see some real examples that it's actually happening there. Highly motivating. So bringing your purpose and vision to life. So we all need purpose. We need to know why we come to work and why the company exists. And bringing that to life is a really great way to help people belong and understand why their job matters, really. And we all want our job to matter. So that is a really big ask, I say, bringing that purpose and vision to life. Communication is a big part of that, sharing the stories, reminding people regularly about that purpose and vision, on why we exist, and examples of clients that have had a great experience. So what's my tip here? My tip is regular communication on an app that every employee has. So in this company, they had brought in a very simple 4-pillar app that every employee has, even hourly staff have. They do the communications on the Christmas parties on there, but they also tell stories about a client who had a great experience with the product. They remind people regularly about why we exist. They send out inspiring quotes, and they're really great at bringing that comms. They don't have a comms department. They have a girl who's really motivated about it, and she has literally, as part of her role, took on the comms, and they tested to see what works. But the key was, could we reach all the employees? So they saw the newsletter was not reaching when it was sent by email, because it goes to private emails, and there's some weird private emails out there, that they realized that once they got the app, then they could go regularly. It was fast. People were seeing it more often. So, and it is not expensive to get a simple comms app for all employees. Right, we are flying through. Next one, as I said, I had to go over 5 because I couldn't nail it down to 5. So I'm sharing 8 strategies here. Employee voice. So this is where it's really important that employees feel they have a voice, actually are able to communicate their voice, and that something is done about what they're actually saying. So what's my tip here? An employee voice group. So what does that look like? So that is getting a group together that is employees from all different areas, from all different departments, different levels, and giving them the responsibility of that they are the employee voice, and actually giving them some specific tasks to do. So in this company that we talked about on this case study, we gave them the task of going out and finding out some more information. So communication came back as poor in this company, really poor. So why is this? So we went out and gave this employee voice group a task to find out what comms is needed. What more would they want to know? What do they want to be hearing regularly about? So they came back with a great list of suggestions, and that's where then the app came about. And then this is the list of things that are communicated regularly about. They also then, certain areas that needed to be, let's say, fixed or improved, they assigned that to the employee voice group, gave them the responsibility and accountability to fix that, but also gave them a budget attached to that. And they went out then, there was one, for example, that the meeting rooms was really poor where they meet. So they gave them a budget of money. They gave them the job to go in, upgrade the room, and it's absolutely fantastic what they've come back with, and they feel real ownership and attachment to that. So Kerry, how would you overcome employee resistance? Is that for can you come on, Kerry? What specifically there?
Yeah, I think it's I've come into an organization where employee engagement is relatively low. So I'm just, I'm trying to build it through our employee forum, but they're quite resistant, one, to change, and to where it hasn't, where the communication has been quite poor previously. So, I'm trying to build it, but they're quite hesitant. And yeah, currently at that resistance. So it's just wanting some advice really on how I can overcome that.
Great question. And I would say starting really small, something really specific that they can impact, either giving them a task to do, like giving them a question, can you find out what, like on the communication, but just giving them something specific that they can feed back on, that would be helpful. And then most biggest key is that they see action being taken with something that they've come back with, even if it's low hanging fruit, but something that you can action to prove that when you have a voice and you make it known what you would be valuable for the employees, that something happens. Because I think that is where I've seen the most resistance is, we say all our things, nobody listens to us. We make all these requests and we don't get any feedback on it. And the other key thing is getting them in front of the leadership in some way. So that connection of building a forum in a controlled way in the beginning, if there is a lot of resistance, so some specific questions that could be answered, but that they then start building that exposure to the leadership, but also being able to communicate what they want, and then that they can get the feedback on what was done. So starting small, but really it has to be very specific tasks. That's what I found when we came into this employee book, which existed before as well, Kerry, that they just didn't know what exactly they were meant to be doing. So
yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Good. So last strategy, performance related bonus and pay. So this one is a controversial one. I'll put it out there right now. But I do think it's worth putting out there for you guys to think about. A lot of the companies that we go into have a yearly bonus system that impacts part employees, not all, around certain measurements. And they get their bonus if the company achieves so much, or maybe at the end of year accounts, how it did, what was the profit, what was the sales, or something related like that. So in this company, we said, right, let's take that from yearly and bring it down to something that is tangible but more regular and is live, so I can see it. So they connected more with the performance, my daily work, and what is in my paycheck. When it's done yearly, it can be the disconnect happens between what I actually did during the year and the hard work I did, and actually the bonus. So connecting those, and that the only way we have found to do that is really, really regular bonus. So what have we done in this company? So the bonus is paid every 2 weeks to the entire company. It's based on this returns level. So the returns is the number of product gets returns, which is a big issue for them, or has been a big issue for them, is a big cost for them, and also tells them the level of first right time that they're sending out, how happy their clients are. So all of that is wrapped up in this one measurement, return. So if they manage to keep returns below 10%, it is fantastic. They have been up at 20 and 25. So if they manage to keep it below 10, amazing. Everyone gets the bonus every 2 weeks. And there's a 2-month lag on it. If the product is not returned within 2 months, then they get the bonus. So it is really tangible. Everyone's really waiting for that Wednesday to see the result come out. Did we make it to the 10? Everyone's committed, and every single job in the company is impacted. And the managers who are really can relate that to, how does my job impact the outcome of the company? How does my job impact that returns? Because if I do this part well, the product will be at the right standard. We won't get the returns. We won't have that cost, and we won't spend our time dealing with this quarter of products coming back in the door that now we have to store, we have to fix, we have to get back out the door again. So when it goes below 10, they also now have to work at a rate to pay back the loss they've made, the cost loss they've made to get back to 10%. So it's not only like, oh, next week we're back at 10. Yeah, hey. No, we have to work hard because we have to make up for the loss we've made in that time as well. So sometimes if it starts going below, there's a big effort to bring it back up, and everyone is focused on it. And it has made a considerable impact on returns, and also has made that competitive, but also that joy. We belong to something, we're achieving something together, and we're getting those numbers down, and everyone can benefit. And they have some celebrations then when they have achieved it as well. So it's an idea. If it doesn't fit with your company, that's okay, but it's an idea on how to bring that bonus, bring it into your life and connect it to the daily work that we do. What I do today impacts my paycheck on Wednesday week. Good, right. Any questions? Come on into the room. I would say turn on your camera, come on in. We're nearly done. We'll give you a summary of how we tackle engagement and culture in companies, and then we'll leave you go. Anyone coming in with any questions?
Yes.
Sorry,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
Hannah. Yeah, come on in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think there was another question before me, but I'll make it quick. So just to jump off what Carrie mentioned earlier about resistance, I have a question when it comes to, posing this to upper management and to people who may not entirely see the value in employee engagement, simply because in hospitality and food and beverage, there is quite a high turnover anyway. For example, we're based in Edinburgh. We now have the Fringe. People come in for part-time. They're here for about a month or two and then they leave. So I think, of course, there is a valid argument of people saying, what is the point of investing so much time and money and effort into this if we have quite high turnover, simply because it's the nature of the industry, of the business in itself. I suppose it would make sense to posture this to people in a managerial level, people with more skin in the game. But for those coming in for a part-time, we've got students, loads of students in the city coming into work, 15, 20 hours a week, maybe less. Just wanting to see how I can kind of challenge the argument of people saying there's no value in doing this or focusing so much effort into it.
Great question, Hannah. Absolutely. So what about the short term where you have a high turnover, they're in it for a short time? The way to, and Hannah, if I understand you correctly, how do you sell it to leadership to be focused on engagement? Great question. The way is client experience. Mm-hmm. So we have related that where we have, again, temporary staff, very short term, and it's the client experience. So if the client experience is important for you, that is one way to really connect the engagement to that. So it may be different tactics, Hannah, to get the engagement for short term, for sure, especially when there is just, maybe a couple of weeks or even a couple of days in some industries. But if the client experience, you can connect it to that, that is one way of selling it. What do you need to do for those short-term staff to come in so your customers or clients, whichever customers and clients, have that great experience?
Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you. So I want to get further clarification when you say client experience, because my own situation is I work directly within the company. I'm not working on behalf. So when you say client experience, could you clarify what you mean in terms of that?
Sure. So if for hospitality, it's customer experience, isn't it?
I see.
So yeah, for in a restaurant, it's the experience that the customer have when they come in. I talk clients because we do a lot of business to business. Sorry, Hannah, but for hospitality, it's customer. What experience do you want that customer to have from when they come in the door to when they leave? So what is important to motivate the staff to give that customer a great experience from the moment they're in it to the moment they leave, because that equals money. Will they come back? Will they recommend it? And a simple way of like the airport staff, when you're leaving, rate the toilets or rate the experience coming through the security. Was it good, bad, or indifferent? Even that, let's see our outcome for the day. Let's measure our tips for the day is another one I've heard. And that is a way of connecting that, but it's the customer experience, the repeat sales for client and customer experience.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem. Julian, I was wondering what communication apps you recommend. I found some industry leading products very clunky. Yes. Oh my gosh, avoid anything clunky when it comes to comms, where there is large numbers and especially where there is hourly workers. It needs to be simple and effective. Julian, if you want a recommendation, there is the one that we have put into that company. It is very, very simple, very, very cheap, and has been really effective. You could have all your, so it's just got 4 pillars. It's got all the procedures and processes in one. It's got comms in another pillar. It's got critical key information in another, and it's got key news, I think, is the other pillar on births and new jobs or people joining and leaving. Very simple. Any other questions? Good. So,
yeah, Marita, sorry, I had a quick question. Sorry. So going back to the bonus scenario, we've recently introduced something, but typically we've done it annually rather than. But and also I wondered how that works. I mean, I'm in a very similar environment to the one you talked about. You know, we're a food service supplier, so. We've got lots of pickers and loaders and people that are on the operational floor. So things like returns and errors and OTIF rate are very relevant, you know, to the people on the operational side of the business. But how do you equate that with people that are in a kind of non-operational part of that? You know, somebody maybe in finance, they think I can't really necessarily influence returns or errors or OTIF, you know, so I'm kind of not really involved. How do you equate that? Do you do something different, or are they engaged in the same bonus situation?
John, great question. The ideal is if you have one KPI that it is related to. It may be a combination of 2 or 3 as well, which I've seen, which we have done in another company where it didn't make fully sense. But the returns one is very, you know, you would think, well, why does the finance, what does the, so we worked through what was that KPI that number one had the biggest cost, the biggest quality issues, and what was the biggest pain in the ass, and what is the biggest impact on the company to move forward with the strategy they had. And they worked out, they were like, if we could get our returns down. But then how does that connect the finance company or the finance department? We connected them. If they're doing the end of years, end of months, also giving the data to the team, if they're publishing the invoices correctly, if they're processing the payments effectively, all of those things we try to connect to that one KPI so that each department knew how their health and safety, I mean, they're not really impacting, but if they keep everyone safe, no one is out of work. If they ensure that the environment is safe, then things get processed faster. We are more effective in our work. So we connected each department to that even though you're not directly, you are in some way influencing in the company to work more effectively. And if you're not, then there's a question of what is that department, because they were all working to get that company to work effectively. And that's one of the outcomes. So it has to be something that is an outcome to, if we all do our job well, what is that outcome? Now, it takes a while to think of that, John. It's not just an obvious one. You really have to pull apart what is a real KPI in a company. Can
I ask a second question?
Sure.
KPI related. So like I say, we recently implemented a KPI system, but our KPI system is role specific. So for example, depending on where you are, whether you're manager or team leader or whatever, you've either got 3 or 5 role specific KPIs. So that's very specific to your particular role. But we also, everybody across the business is also KPI'd on their engagement with the values. So we've got 5 core values. So they've either got 8 or they've got 10 KPIs, which seems quite a lot, I get, but 5 of them are core values. So it's about how, but we've got a kind of key to what people's understanding is of their adherence and their engagement with the core values. Somebody that engages on a regular basis, somebody, going back to the original question, somebody who contributes, somebody who goes above and beyond, that kind of stuff. Is that stuff that you've seen anywhere else? Is that, you know, because some people think, oh God, it must be terrible if you've actually got a KPI your values. You know, it must be failing massively if you've got a KPI your values.
Great question, John. I'm just going to pause and then I'll come back to it. I'll just finish off here in case anyone needs to leave. And then I come back as, yes, I would like to go further on that one because it's a great question. So we work through a 5-stage process, and we measure culture or engagement at a regular interval during the year to make sure that the leadership have that live data and it's working out what's working, what's not, and what are the areas to focus on. Because there's always loads of areas, but which ones do you prioritize? And then our job is being that progress partner to the company to make sure that even when you do that engagement survey and you've great motivation, that you actually get the things done. So I would say if this all resonated with you, there'll be a link come out to you. It's a Calendly. You can book in a 30-minute free strategy with us where we'll walk through where you are now and what would be a good idea for you going forward. If you would like to do that free strategy, please jump on this link. It tells you my free times and you can book it at your own pace. So now I'm going to come off of that. So, and John, I'm going to answer your question now. Yes, I have seen, it's very controversial. John, we did last month, how to get your values from the wall into the DNA. And one of my recommendations, John, was actually that to make it part of your bonus structure, that adherence to values. It works for some and doesn't work for others. It's not the way to get engagement long-term, but it's great for that initial shift and that focus shift. So we have seen big shifts when we have done it. So because people are focused on, hey, my bonus is related to this, I am going to make sure that I'm living and breathing the values. It does not ensure that it will become ingrained and lived. But I would say definitely for those first few years, it's fantastic to really get that focus, that it's important, that the company thinks is important. I'm getting personal benefit by doing it. Word of warning, make sure it's super clear what it means, adherence to values, because there can be a lot of gray. That's the only watch out for that one. So the behaviors have to be really, really clear and the measurement against it. So if I'm a manager and I have a half a dislike to someone because they annoy me, am I going to rate them down? You know, how do you ensure that it's really crystal clear? John, just going back to you on the KPIs, if you already have KPIs related to each department or function, you can use those as your connected to those if that's already established. And instead of having that golden one, that might be the way to start it, and then move towards having those cross company. The difference is that if you've cross company ones, my God, you get the focus on them. Yeah,
Thank you.
But you've already done a lot of work, John, so it sounds like you're getting there. Julian, I said I'd share the app with you. Great, Kerry. Yeah, you do it on different schemes for the operation and the office workers. Yeah, you pay on a quarterly basis. That's really good. The faster you can do it, the more I can connect to actually my job. Great, Stephanie, delighted you found it informative. So that is it. If there's any questions, I would say, guys, I'll send out that email to you and you'll have that link. Book in for a half an hour. It's a free strategy session. We'd love to hear from you. And if any of this resonated, we can walk through how it would impact, how it would be for your company. I am now quite hot after this super, super hot day that we have here in the UK. And I will say thank you for joining this morning. It was a real pleasure having you.